For this experiment, you will need approved eye protection, a stand, also known as a ring stand or a retort stand, a burette clamp, a burette, an Erlenmeyer flask, some vinegar, some sodium hydroxide base, some phenolphthalein indicator, 2 beakers labeled acid and base, a volumetric pipette, and a pipette filler. The clamp fits over the top of the stand and then is bolted down securely. The burette can then be clamped onto the stand with this spring-loaded clamp, and that just wants to be held loosely. It is good practice to always have a container underneath the burette at all times for the remainder of the day, just in case we have a spill. Into one of the small beakers, pour the base. You'll need a total of about 60 milliliters for the day, maybe a little more. With the stopcock on the burette closed, pour just a few milliliters of the base into the burette. We're going to use this to rinse the inside of the burette because we don't know what the last person that used this piece of glassware used it for. They may have used it for acid, they may have used it for base. So we're going to rinse the inside of the glass so that the pH on the inside of the burette matches with the experiment that we're doing for today. I've taken the burette out of the clamp and I'm just swirling the very small amount of base that is in the burette around so that it coats the entire inside of the glass. Now that the glassware has been rinsed, we can dispense the base into the waste container. With the stopcock closed, I'm now going to fill the burette with base. This burette reads to 50 milliliters. I'll do this nice and carefully, and I'm going to fill past the 0 mark at the top. Some lab manuals will tell you to use a funnel when doing this, but a funnel actually causes an airlock at the top and is more likely to cause an error in the amount of liquid that you dispense. So as you can see, I have filled past the top of the burette. There is a small air bubble below the stopcock in the downspout of the burette, and I'm going to remove it by running some of the excess volume of base that's in the burette out. And I can do that by rapidly opening and closing the stopcock. Now that the air bubble is gone, I'm going to reduce the volume in the burette by very slowly opening the stopcock and allowing the base to drip out. It's dripping into the waste container. I'm going to allow the level at the top of the burette to drain right down so that the bottom of the meniscus just touches the 0 mark. Now, it's actually really good practice not to start at 0 So if you do go down below 0, that's fine. Just write what your starting volume is in your data table in your lab report. The bottom of the meniscus is the line that you read to. Next, take the vinegar and add about 30 milliliters of it to the small beaker that you've marked as acid. We're going to precisely measure 10 milliliters of this acetic acid vinegar solution using a volumetric pipette. This pipette has a bulb, and then at the top there is a meniscus. There's a little scribed line, and if you move your eye from one place to another, you can see the parallax where you see the back of the line. But if your eye is completely lined up with the line, you just see the line. We're going to fill this until the meniscus touches that line, the bottom of the meniscus. This pipette says TD, which means to deliver. So there'll be a little tiny droplet of liquid left at the tip of the pipette that we do not blow out, we just leave it in. Okay, we're going to fill our acid using just a little squeezy ball. It's going to allow us to perform a small vacuum and pull liquid up into the pipette. Going to pipette 10 milliliters of the acid solution into the Erlenmeyer flask by squeezing the pipette bulb, attaching the hole in the rubber onto the glass. Do this very gently. You don't want to injure yourself. And then ever so gently let the bulb fill, and you can see that it is pulling liquid up into the pipette. I need to get to this line right here. Now I'm on purpose going to let it go past that line so that when I take it off, I can put my thumb over the top of the pipette, which will allow the liquid to stay where it is. I'm also pressing the tip of the pipette into the bottom of the beaker. This is keeping the liquid level where it is. If I ever so slightly raise my thumb, I reduce the pressure and allow the meniscus to touch that line. I now have exactly 10 milliliters of vinegar, acetic acid, going into the Erlenmeyer flask. Once again, this is a 2 dispense pipette, so there's going to be a very small droplet that is left inside the pipette at the end. There it is. We're going to let that be. This is phenolphthalein indicator. It is an acid-base indicator that is colorless in acidic solutions, but basic solutions make it a pink color. I'm going to add 3 or 4 drops of the phenolphthalein indicator into my acidic solution and give it a swirl. I'm then going to place this underneath the burette, and I'm going to move the tip of the burette to be close to the Erlenmeyer flask. Erlenmeyer flasks are designed this way so that you can pick them up and shake them, swirl them. They have a narrow neck, which allows you to do that without spilling any of the liquid. It's time to start the titration. I've made a record in my data table of what the starting volume of base in the burette is, and I'm going to open this and let liquid base solution dribble out of the burette and into the acidic solution. And I'm going to give constant swirling. You might be able to see on camera, I've put a white piece of paper underneath the Erlenmeyer flask, that there are touches of pink, flashes of pink color, where the base touches the surface of the solution. That's the indicator registering that base is localized in that part of the solution, but diffusion is going to make those go away, and that's what the swirling is for. And I'm going to let a stream of base out of the burette with constant swirling, and when those pink flashes start to linger a little longer than they had before, I'm going to slow the rate of this addition right down. You can see that the pink is definitely there longer than it was before. So I'm going to slow my rate of addition at this point. And the end point of the reaction happens when the solution goes pink and stays pink, but not a hot pink, just a very, very vague, faint pink. You can see this is now taking a little longer for the color to go away. So I'm going to slow down at this point. I'm now adding drop by drop, and I could be here for a little time. My solution is pink, but when I shake it, that color goes away. That tells me I am very close to the end point. Very close. Now, I'm going to overshoot on purpose here. If you make the solution go pink and stay pink, then you've got, and it's a very vivid pink, then you've gone too far. Yeah. So just those last few drops was enough for me to go from being really, really close to my answer to being way past it. So what you're going to need to do is catch that end point. At the end of your titration, read your burette from the bottom of the meniscus and record the final volume in your data table. This will allow you to record what the actual added volume is. And because we know the concentration of the base that went in, and we know the volume of the acid that was originally in the Erlenmeyer, then we can do M1V1 equals M2V2 to find the concentration of the vinegar. Your found volume may be different than the one that I found in this experiment, because on the day of your experiment, we might be using a different concentration of base, or we might be using a different vinegar. Okay? So don't look at these numbers and say that you have to be close to those numbers. Once you have performed a titration, you'll need to replicate those results. So go ahead and add some more base into the burette and do the experiment again. Waste goes in the waste bottle, and we'll collect all of that at the end. The concentration of the base and acid that we're using today are dilute, and so they are not anything for us to be worried about. The phenolphthalein, however, is a powerful laxative. It used to be a commercial laxative. It was taken off the market about a decade ago. So wash your hands.